Hi there, it's Psychic Cynthia here, Spiritual Psychic Cynthia Killian, and welcome. I want to talk with you about doing cleansings, especially things like house cleansings. And probably if you're watching this video, or at least if you're following my work, I bet that you probably do house cleansing sometimes, like burning sage, using sage to clean it out, or there's many different ways to do, a house cleansing, or even a cleansing of yourself. And those of you who followed my work for some time, I'm a really big fan of self-cleansing, especially doing cleansing baths and showers, or even, sitting by a fire and letting the fire cleanse you, kind of like, reminiscent of the ancient saunas and sweat lodges, but, just having your own fire. I don't know, I really like the baths, though, the cleansing baths and the cleansing showers. And then, of course, cleansing your house, cleansing the inside, cleansing the outside. And there's many practices for this. And what I want to talk about today, though, isn't, all the details, the ins and outs. But I want to tell you a story I will share with you. And this is about what not to do, okay? And first of all, I'll just front load it. Here's the moral of the story, okay? The moral, what I'm trying to get across here, the point is that whatever technique you're using, whether you're using sage or salt water or essential oils or flower essences, or maybe you're using mugwort or lavender, so you're using herbs or salt, herbs. And of course, these are all allies, spiritual allies. When you work with any kind of plant, you're calling upon and working with your plant ally. If you're working with salt, that is from the mineral world, so that's your mineral ally. If you're calling upon your guides, that's, the guide ally. You get the idea, okay? But my point here is that your part matters too, and your human energy, your consciousness, and you want to be in the right vibe, and your heart and your mind and spirit need to be in the right place for cleansing. And if your heart and your mind and spirit are not in the right place for cleansing, it doesn't matter what tools you use, it doesn't matter what ritual you do, it doesn't matter what process you do, it will not be effective. And in fact, it may have the opposite effect. Okay? Do you get me? Okay, well, I'm going to tell a story and maybe it'll help you get the meaning if you didn't get it. So I was recently consulted by a friend and a client who has a situation with a neighbor. None of you have situations with neighbors, right? You've never had conflict with your neighbors, right? Okay, I'm joking. I'm being sarcastic. I think this is common. I think if you live somewhere long enough, maybe not even long, there can be conflicts with neighbors. That's why every world religion, major one, has some teaching about, getting along with your neighbor and the importance of that. I digress, though. Anyway, she had pretty bad conflict, has a pretty bad conflict with one of her neighbors. And the situation sounds pretty bad. I mean, she thinks her neighbor has gone into her house while she's gone. I don't know, okay, if that's true or not. But I think the fact that she believes that means it's gotten pretty bad, okay? And so, and she is taking steps in the mundane world. And by the way, it's important to not only do cleansing, but to support ourselves in the physical world, in the practical world, taking practical steps. So, for example, if you sage your house, but you've got like a kitchen full of dirty dishes, what's the point? You clean your dishes first. You know that you should clean your house a little before you do a cleansing. Okay, if you don't know that, I just want to put that out there. Because when you have a lot of chaos and disorder in your house physically, it's really hard to bring in good vibes. Even if you bring them in, they won't stick. So I digress, but only just a little. Maybe somebody watching needs to know that. So anyway, she's doing, getting her camera back online and things like that, and having somebody watch her house and whatever she needs to do on that level. We talked about some, psychic steps she could take, and, she was asking about protection, but because there's been several altercations actually in her yard with this person, I said the first thing we need to do is some purification. We need to cleanse out the vibrations, remove the negative energy imprints. and then you can come back in with protection. And by the way, there's a tip right there, okay? Because these kinds of dialogues, when they're very heated and there are words exchanged and there's a high emotional energy, it leaves behind traces and remnants. And also, it might be stimulated by the land. That's another subject for another time, but it may just be the energies of that place bring out, because maybe the land is not at peace. So doing the cleansing can help the land too. So anyway, we talked about some different things she could do for cleansing, and there's a whole tire of different things that I mentioned, multi-levels. But I did suggest saging the perimeter of the yard, the entire property. It's not the most gigantic, so this is possible. And she said to me back, "Oh, I've done that already. In fact, while I was doing that, I saw this person and they came over and talked to me and we exchanged words, and I told her she's a demon and cussed her out." So, okay, this is what I mean. So that saging just become totally null and void. If you are saging your house or spraying salt water, or maybe you have a room spray you bought, from a light worker or a magic, shaman or herbalist who made this up, right? And you've got this nice spray to cleanse out it. But while you're spraying it or you're saging or insert whatever you're going to do, you could be chanting. By the way, you can clean your space with sound too. And that's one of my favorite ways. Using bells or handpan or singing bowls or drums, whatever. Or just singing. Just singing. If you know how to do it in a higher consciousness. That's the part though. This all needs to be done in a reverent state. You can be joyful. You can have fun with it. But you need to have some of these higher, lighter vibrations. If you are cleansing, thinking about how much you hate another person or how angry you are or wishing them ill will, I would dare say if you're cleansing and you're really focused on how bad things are, that's not a good mental state to be in for cleansing, and it will null and void the cleansing, or at least weaken it. And in some cases, it's possible that it might call in more negative energies or whatever word. Actually, I'm going to use the word destructive energies, okay? And listen, I understand. For those of you watching who maybe see things a little differently, I understand, from the great cosmic perspective, it's not really negative or positive. It's just constructive, deconstructive. Some things are life-giving and some things are life-destroying, right? But I'm assuming that you're cleansing because you want to bring in some of what we normally call positive, which it's all positive really in its own way, and it's all negative really in its own way, right? But if you're cleansing, you're trying to bring in harmony, in other words. So if you're trying to bring in harmony, at the very least you want to be a little bit chill and neutral while you're doing the cleansing. You don't want to be sharp, you don't want to be angry, you don't want to be cussing somebody out, including in your mind. Don't bother if you're in that state. Maybe you have a friend or loved one do the cleansing for you instead. This is where we need to support each other. And I don't mean just reaching out to somebody you don't know and asking them to do it for you. This is where we need to get our families involved. If there's anybody in the family who wants to learn these spiritual practices, typically in every family there'll be one person who is kind of the shaman, the healer, the wise woman, the wise man. And then there might be some other people who are kind of interested. So if you're the wise woman, shaman who usually does it or whatever, try to find a friend or a loved one who you could teach a little bit of this to, so that if you're ever in that angry state and can't do your own cleansing, they could at least be there for moral support. You can ask them. You can say, hey, I need to do this cleansing of my house, of my property, my business, whatever. But I'm feeling really upset and angry, and I know that's not a good space to do it in. Could you be with me and help me to stay a little bit uplifted? It's kind of like, for those of you who are familiar with spiritualism training, and that's not going to be very many of you, but we talk about having a battery. it's really just your support system, somebody who can stay positive, or at least it doesn't even have to be positive. Really, it can be neutral, objective, calm, chill. One of the most powerful forces on earth is not a super positive or super negative person. It is the chill person, the calm person. Okay, person who can see things rationally or more clearly without putting agendas on. So if you can find somebody like that in your life, or somebody who's positive, okay? You don't want people egging you on in your own angry emotions or fearful emotions while you're doing a cleansing. Okay, so maybe at all. There might be a lesson here for you in your life relationships. You might want to look at, who's around you, and do the people in your life, do they escalate drama? Do they encourage you to overreact? Do they encourage you to be angry and critical and, negative and pessimistic? And I mean, when I say negative, it's okay to feel sad sometimes. By the way, it's even okay to feel angry. It's all about how you do it. And if you let it flow through you, do you take accountability for your emotions? Do you realize emotions are not who you are? They're something you experience, right? And by the way, emotions aren't truth. They're true to themselves, but they're a way of experiencing the situation. So do the people in your life encourage you in healthy emotional expression, or do they encourage drama? Do they encourage escalation of conflict? Do they make a big deal about everything? Are they crazy makers? Are you a crazy maker? Don't be a crazy maker. That's what I'm saying. And I'm actually, the essential meaning of this video is, you can't do a cleansing if you're in the crazy maker mode yourself. So you've got to calm down, detach a little, neutralize. I mean, how are you going to neutralize a situation, clear out the energies, if you're not a little bit neutralized? So maybe the thing to think about if you're in that state is asking yourself what you need to do to get a little bit more calm and chill, to de-escalate, to deneutralize yourself before you go do the cleansing. And I don't know what the answer is to that. I mean, I could make suggestions, and I do if I'm working with somebody personally. I think a lot of times it helps to talk with somebody who's calm and more neutral. But that depends. Not everybody's a sharer like that. So maybe, sometimes for me it just helps to go outside and sit in nature. Now, if you're scared to death of nature, that's not going to be great. So you find your own way, right? But you got to simmer down a little before you do the cleansings. You can't be cussing in your heart and mind and spirit or falling apart and doing a cleansing. You just can't. It won't work. Okay? Bottom line. All right. Until next time, I'm Psychic Cynthia with my guides and with the universe that we're all in, and wishing you many bright blessings.